If you're listening to this, then you're unaware of what is creeping up behind you.
A little info. The needlework room is on the 3rd floor of the old block in my secondary school. It's on the same floor as the F&N rooms. Downstairs, floors 1 and 2, are the D&T studios. The empty space outside the D&T studios on the 1st floor is the art workspace. The windows for the needlework room are tinted black. If you want to look inside, you have to bring your face to the window and look inside, even if the lights inside are on. A cleaner's experience. Now, there is this cleaner who decided to retire. She isn't working anymore. Anyway, she lives really near the school, and she can see the school from her house. She'll turn off the light in the needlework room, but every time she looks at the school from her house, the lights are on. She's kind of curious about this, but she reckoned that maybe some playful students or maybe teachers used the room after she cleaned it and forgot to turn off the lights. One day, she was cleaning the 3rd floor first. As usual, she turned off the lights. She then went downstairs to clean and such. When she reached the 1st floor and started cleaning the art space, she looked up and saw that the lights are on. Again. Thing is, no one went up. So why were the lights on? She got curious and decided to go up to investigate. So, she went up to the needlework room again, where the light was still on. So she brought her face to the window to look inside, only to see a pair of eyes staring back at her. She was so freaked out she packed up and went home straight away. She retired some time after that, I think. Friend A's experience. Friend A can see spirits. She's in the art stream, taking art. Once, it was evening when she walked past the needlework room. She looked in and saw a lady with long hair, totally in black, sitting down and sewing. Sounds right? Well, it isn't. Because even though she's sewing, her whole hands are covered with blood. Friend B's experience. Friend B cannot see spirits. Okay, the upper secondary uses the old block. If it's a rainy day or the floor is wet, the upper sec will go to class straight, while the lower sec will go to the hall. As such, you can enter the class as early as you want, provided that the school and the general office are open. So friend B comes to school really early. It was a day where the floor was wet, so she went up to class straight away. She wasn't alone. Some of her classmates were with her as well. But after entering her class, she got bored and decided to go outside for a bit. She looked out at the 3rd floor where she saw a student running along the path. But the student was running at the same spot, even after a very long time. My personal experience. Okay, in my Sec 4 year, we had night classes every now and then. Friend C got really curious about the needlework room after hearing these stories. So she suggested going there to check it out after the night class. I was fine with it, so I agreed. We pulled another 4 to 6 people along with us. After the night class, everyone was really excited about going to check it out. But somehow, I had a bad feeling. I was really reluctant. Because, like friend A, I can also see spirits. Friend C got really impatient because we were debating whether we should go or not, because the gate will be locked after 10 minutes upon dismissal. So friend C ran straight up the stairs. I was worried for her, because she was going alone, so I chased after her, and everyone else followed us. Now, the staircases are the rectangle types, where you have to turn after a short flight of stairs. We had our night class at the new block, and the only thing connecting us to the old block was the hall which leads to the D&T studios if you walk straight, which was on the 2nd floor. Remember that the needlework room is on the 3rd floor? Next to the D&T studios is a flight of stairs which leads up to the needlework room straight. Friend C ran up the stairs, and I chased after her. She was much faster than me, and was ahead of me quite a bit. But she was still within sight. As I turned and head for the last flight of stairs, I saw what Friend A described. A girl with long hair that's totally black in color. She was standing at the top of the stairs next to the window, staring at me. And she was near Friend C. When I looked again, she was gone. The rest of the gang soon caught up. I ran and, again, we were debating if we should continue. I was really freaked out already, and I was really jumpy. All I wanted to do was go away from that place. Friend C can't see spirits, so she didn't notice anything wrong. She wanted to continue running to the needlework room, but I grabbed her arm and told her to just go back, and that I'll explain everything later. She was reluctant at first, but when she saw that I was so freaked out, she agreed to leave. After we left, we went for supper together, the whole group of us. I told them what I saw, and they were all spooked. But I wasn't the only one who noticed something that's unusual. There were only 2 guys in the group who went. The rest were all girls. The pathway was lit by lamps, so there should be this orange glow, right? But what the 2 guys saw was that the path was grey and was really misty. The other girls felt really uneasy and as if something was there. But I was the only one who actually saw. I was so freaked out that night. I didn't dare go home by myself. We all shared a cab home. If you had studied in St.Patrick's before, you would have heard about the various ghost stories. It was built before World War II, and during the war the British had used it as a hospital. But it was later captured by the Japanese and they used it as an administrative building. The Japanese had a battle in there with the British, resulting in the death of soldiers and civilians. There are many stories about the school, but I'm going to share one that is not so well known as the staff did not want to frighten the students. During the war, the Japanese sent infantries to the compound to capture it. They did not use explosives and heavy artillery as they wanted the building intact. There was this one Japanese soldier that was given the orders to kill anyone at a staircase near the current heritage room that leads up to the library currently. The Japanese soldier knew that there were civilians up the stairs and was going up there to kill them. But what he didn't know was that there was a British soldier up there waiting for enemies as well. He slowly approached the wooden stairs, and the very moment he peeked upwards, the British soldier shot him in the head. It is rumored that the ghost of the Japanese soldier still lingers there, trying to find people he was sent to kill. And many years ago, 5 construction workers were sent to replace the wooden steps to concrete. But when they took a nap there, all 5 of them died in their sleep. The steps were eventually replaced to concrete and the walls repainted. But still, it is said that you can still see the bloodstains of the Japanese soldier on the wall. This is one of my creepier, yet weirder experiences. And recent too. I still get nightmares over it. It was like 5 in the morning. My dad had an appointment at the hospital, so he dropped me off at school early that day. Seeing that I had 2 whole hours to kill, I headed over to the food court nearby to get some early grub. There's a stall I like, which opens up early to prepare the food. I'm an exception, seeing how I've regularly ordered from them, so they allowed me to take away some food. Settling for that, I headed back to school. It was then 5:20 a.m. I ate my breakfast as soon as I entered the school. The gate was already open. The security guard looked at me and told me, "Better eat at the canteen. You're upper sec, right? It's best if you don't go upstairs." I was wondering if he was worried that he would get blamed for me leaving the empty food packet around later, but I assured him I'd dispose of it properly. He wanted to warn again, but it fell on my deaf ears. I know, I'm stubborn. Anyway, I managed to finish my food once I hit the 3rd floor, which was my class's level. I threw away the empty containers properly like the good boy I was. Then, since I was early, I checked my phone. 5:36. Still early. Generally, the entire school still wasn't lit, so it was eerily dark and empty. I was used to it though. But then, thoughts started swimming in my head. There was once a murder that happened in our school. I'm not sure about the facts, but a woman committed suicide in one of our level 3 classrooms. Curious, ballsy, and overall stupid, I decided to investigate. I peered into every classroom, using my camera phone to videotape my progress. After scanning, I would enter the classroom, walk into the middle and do a 360 scan. Anyway, this went off without a hitch until I reached the fabled haunted classroom. As soon as I peered into it, I felt my adrenaline spike. There was indeed a woman. Her back was facing me. She sat on one of the tables, staring at the cupboard situated at the back of every class. I quietly positioned my phone to videotape her. I remember her turning around to face me. What I remember of her face still sends shivers up my spine. It was completely flat, smooth, and gleaming white. This woman didn't have a face. And then I blacked out. I woke up at exactly 7:36. The class was greeting the teacher and my partner was nudging me awake. I quickly stood up and greeted the teacher. I recalled my head hurting like crazy, and I was unconsciously checking my phone. It was indeed 7:36. I was freaking out. How the hell did I get into my classroom, which was at the end of the school? The haunted classroom was the third from the staircase landing. My class is the class furthest away from it. I was wondering what happened to me during that 2 hours I was out. Anyway, we had to sing the national anthem, so I left the classroom to gather outside my class to sing. After the anthem and pledge taking, I noticed as I was entering the classroom, the faceless lady was among us. I saw her staring at me among the rush of students. I choked on the water I was drinking and tried to get a second look, but she was gone. Then I remembered my phone had a video. I wondered if I had her on film. I watched it and recalled the exact position of where she was. What was in the video, however, was a misty white reddish thing. Then the video cracked up into static. I noted this was about the time I blacked out, but the static stopped and I saw the white reddish thing filling up the whole screen. I deleted the video at that point, and throughout the whole day I kept catching brief glimpses of her when I least expected it. The toilet, science lab, canteen. I really freaked out at that point. I made an excuse and got an early dismissal form. It was 11 when I finally couldn't take it anymore. As I left the school, the security guard stopped me and chided me. "See? Told you to eat in the canteen. What did you see?" I related what had happened. He spoke quickly. "She must have possessed you during those 2 hours. Never mind. Go home. Talk to your elders and ask them to bless you. It will be fine. And if anyone calls your name, just don't look behind. Turn your whole body around." This time I listened to his words and headed home by cab. I plugged the MP3 into my ears and played music as loud as my eardrums could take to drain out any other noises. As soon as I reached my home, my grandmother knew what happened and quickly let me in. She asked me to stand in front of an effigy of the goddess of mercy and she blessed me. I headed for the toilet soon after. What I saw in the mirror was scary. My face was pale, very pale, and I had blood trickling from my temple to my neck. I quickly washed away the blood, took a bath, applied some first aid and slept. I woke up at roughly 9 that night. I knew I was dreaming, but I couldn't recall what it was. But as I thought hard about this, I recalled what I was dreaming. The faceless woman. We looked at each other face to face throughout the whole dream. This happened a week ago. I'm still having the nightmares, but it's getting less and less. And I hardly see the faceless woman anymore. Thank God, actually. I've many such experiences, but this is by far the most chilling one. I vividly remembered it happened in primary school, and I was 11 or 12. In all my years there, I have not encountered any spooky incidents, and it was not known to be dirty, so it came as a surprise and abnormality to me as I reflected on it later. Anyways, I consider myself lucky as I did not experience this alone. I was with my friend and we were waiting for 3 other members of our team. The 5 of us and a teacher were supposed to meet at school on Sunday for a competition. It was very early, like 6:30 a.m, and the weather was really cloudy that day, coupled with the fact that it was a Sunday and almost nobody was in school, and that there were very few lights on. It was very eerie. The only people we met were a teacher walking across the corridor on the 2nd floor towards the staff room, and a cleaner auntie, or otherwise known as a janitor. Me and my friend hung out on the ground floor as it was really, really dark, even at the 1st floor, not to mention the upper floors. Eventually we got bored of waiting for our friends and decided to walk around the school. It was at a particularly long corridor, the classrooms to our right and the parade square to our left. Did the spooky incident happen? We were chatting and strolling, whiling our time away when suddenly we both stopped in our tracks. All around us, there was suddenly this loud grong, grong, grong. It reverberated around the floor, the walls, the ceilings, everything. It sounded like a very heavy and large invisible person striding towards us at a very fast pace. I knew it was not an earthquake. The sound came from the far end of the corridor and was getting louder and stronger fast. Words simply cannot describe the feeling I felt at that time. The sound, the experience was so unnatural and surreal. It didn't sound anything normal. We both looked at each other and ran. As we ran, we heard this very high-pitched, very chilling female voice screaming. It was so loud that it sounded like it was just inches away from our ears. It definitely did not sound human at all. We continued running until we reached the canteen where it had the most lights and where our bags were. Nothing made sense that day. Who would scream like that? The aged janitor? And on hindsight, I realized no teacher would come to school on a dark Sunday morning at 6:30 a.m. The teacher that we spotted on the 2nd floor, I don't even think that was an actual human being. This was something I personally experienced in my old primary school. Rumor has it that the girls' toilet on the 2nd level is haunted. It is also the only student toilet to which has a full view mirror facing the doorway. The school I was at had a funny rule where students are to go in 2s for a toilet break. For some reason I never knew why. It is a very old school, and in 2000 they pulled it down. It was called BKPS, short form, located at Kalang. It was after PE, where students were then required to change out of their PE attire to normal school uniform. As there was more than one class taking PE each time, the toilet was usually full as everyone was changing out of their attire. Thus, I went to the toilet located at level 2. Now understand this, I've used this toilet many times as it is one of the cleanest toilets in school. However, little did I know that that day would be my last visit there. As usual, I went into a cubicle to get changed. While changing, I heard someone from the next cubicle flushing the toilet, which was weird as not many students use this toilet. Not paying much attention to it, I continued to mind my own business. After changing as a female, I admired myself in the mirror for a while. That was when it happened. All the toilets started flushing one by one. I walked towards the toilet cubicle to make sure no one was trying to be funny with me. I was maybe around 9 or 10, but was no pushover. That was when, all at once, all the toilets started flushing together at once. It was plain creepy. I tried to rationalize the situation, thinking to myself that in some shopping centers, the toilets are auto-flush. I turned around and walked to the door. As much as I wanted to run, I told myself to keep it cool. As I was about to reach the door, it closed on me. Panicked, I knocked on the door fiercely, only to be greeted by the darkness that followed, as the light in the toilet suddenly failed me. Helpless, I looked around for an escape route. As I looked around, I realized my reflection in the mirror was off. Remember the full-length mirror I mentioned earlier? Well, that mirror, it looked back at me. But what was funny was that the me in the mirror had blank eyes, like emotionless, with totally no facial expression at all. While here I am trying not to have a heart attack. It was then that I saw a bright light and was pulled out of the toilet, only to see the cleaner auntie giving me a disapproving look. Speaking in Mandarin, she told me, "You, I tell you many times, don't use this toilet, and you never listen. See what happens? If I didn't come quick enough, maybe you would become the girl inside the mirror already. Hurry, go back to class." After that incident, I tried many times to convince the cleaner auntie to tell me the story of the girl in the mirror, but every time she rejected me. Only one time did she reply, "Kid, don't mess with things you don't know." Here is a story from an old school in Ipoh, the Anderson School, a prestigious school that Perak royalties attend. Is now 123. It opened in 1909. This school has a boarding school for non-Ipoh students and also house athletes. The school is separated by a small river from Fair Park. Fair Park had a very old building which is now demolished and replaced with new shops. Back then, the dormitory faced this old building. The story goes that an athlete, bright and young, had to train until late evening almost every day. When he got back to his dormitory, walking in the corridors, he could hear tap, tap, tap sounds. Every time when he turned his head, he found no one and shrugged it off. This continued for quite some time, and it bothered him. At the same time, he noticed that there was a girl always looking at him at the same time and in the same room. She would always be at the same window, head tilted to the side and resting on the window bar, her knuckle supporting her chin. The boy noticed that she would stare at him immensely and fondly, as if falling in love with him. This bothered him even more, and her appearance disturbed him. The tapping sound was more frequent and more annoying as time went on. Surprisingly, the boy didn't find it scary, but irritating. Every time he looked back, he found no one. One day, after he had performed his training routine, he walked back to his hostel and headed to his room. This time, he heard the tapping sound again. He stopped to listen carefully, and the tapping sound stopped too. When he sped up, the tapping tempo increased. Irritated, he turned his head to look back again, but this time he did something differently. He looked at the ground. To his horror, he saw the girl was crawling on the floor, following him and making the tapping sounds with her elbow. Her lower part of the body was gone, so she needed to crawl for mobility. My friend, the school teacher, told us this story about his school warden friend. It all happened on one cloudless night, when it was the warden's turn to sleep in and take care of the kids at the boarding school. He had slept there countless times, but this night was different. It was a hot, cloudless night, and the moon was bright. Visibility was moderate, and there was no wind. Soon, by 10 p.m., it was lights off for everyone. The warden's room was on the second floor. The hostel was overlooking 2 basketball courts. The school was in a semi-rural area of Singapore. The warden was instinctively awoken at 2 a.m. He did not know why he had suddenly awoken. Nevertheless, he got up and went to the table near the window to get his glass of water. As he stood by the window drinking, he noticed that there was something moving across the basketball courts in a very random manner. Straining his eyes, he suddenly became aware that what he saw was a headless black entity. He rubbed his eyes a few times, but it was still there. Taking a torchlight, he went down to investigate further. He was scared, but curiosity got the better of him. There was a long corridor from the ground floor staircase to the exit door to the basketball courts. When he was starting to walk along the corridor towards the exit door, he became aware that the exit door was open. At an instant, there was the entity blocking the exit door. Both the warden and the entity stood facing each other, about 5 meters away for a few seconds. All of a sudden, the headless dark entity rushed towards the warden and slammed into him, and then disappeared into thin air. The warden fell sick and was hospitalized for the next 3 weeks. He never returned to the school, even after he had recovered. He had applied for a transfer to another school with an official recommendation letter from the hospital psychiatrist.
Hello watchers and listeners, thank you so much for watching. As always, a big thank you to all of the Reddit users who kindly allowed me to use their stories. If you want to help support this channel, you will find links to both my Patreon and my Teespring store in the description below, so feel free to have a look. And the biggest thank you to all of you who continue to support me. I truly do appreciate it. And remember,
Papa loves you.